Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out on this Monday evening. It's great to see everybody, and I think we're going to have an exciting evening. We're here to talk with three of our judges from here and there. Is it still working? I can't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The title of the program tonight is Serious About Safety, but Serious About Solutions. And so I think it's going to be very informative. I want to thank our partners. I'm the president of the Elmo Area Democrats. We partnered with Indivisible Kingwood, and we also partnered with the Lone Star College Democrats. And I want to give folks from those groups just a minute to come up and say hi. So Senator Hendrickson, would you like to come up?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Stop mocking. He's very bashful.
No, it's from years of teaching high school. So, good evening, everyone. I know most of you guys. I'm Cindy Hendrickson, and I'm the co-lead for the Indivisible Kingwood group. We are a nonpartisan grassroots group of neighbors and activists who believe in democracy. And we believe that it only works when ordinary people get involved. We organize, we show up, we speak out, we go to town halls, rallies, the polls, and in our communities just to defend truth, fairness, and justice. We know real change happens when people take action together. So that's why we're here tonight, to stand with these Democratic judges. They uphold those same values every day. Applying the law with integrity, treating people with dignity, even as they face attacks from Republicans and our governor.
Yep.
Indivisible stands with these judges because they defend justice. They defend all of us. If you want to take action and make a difference in the community, please join us. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Logan Robinson. He's the president of the College Democrats, and Isabella Solano, who's the vice president. Come on up.
First of all, I want to go ahead and thank everybody for being in attendance tonight. It all starts here. It starts with participation. It starts with attendance, and that's how we can act in our communities, correct? My name is Logan Robinson. I am the president of Lone Star Democrats here at Lone Star Kingwood. I am a first-year student here on campus. I'm transferred from Texas Tech. And as president, I think the important thing this semester to focus on is getting the youth involved and getting the youth empowered. And that's our goal as an organization. And because as we saw like in these past few elections, what ends up deciding, especially on the national level, is the young men vote. We saw the young men, young women of all demographics vote towards right more than they ever have. And I think that's where we lost, right? So getting those voices involved, getting those voices educated is what's going to help us out.
Hello, I'm Isabella Solano, Vice President of College Democrats. This is my third semester at Lone Star. I've been a part of this group for over the past year, and it's been very exciting to see the growth and engagement among students, because that's where we started off. It started with only 4 of us, and at our first meeting this semester, there was almost 20. So it is very exciting to get that conversation started.
So, it all starts here. It all starts today. Thank y'all for all being here. We are here to lead the mission here on campus, and we're excited to work with everybody here. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass the mic to the Humble Democrats.
Thank you. I'll leave you with a couple quick announcements. There's tables outside for Indivisible and for Illinois Democrats where you can sign up for our newsletters or just get more information about our groups. And I want to take the moment of privilege. The Illinois Democrats has our next regular club meeting next Monday night at Los Cucos in Fall Creek, which is Wilson Road and the Beltway. And Representative Gene Wu is going to be our speaker.
Oh, cool.
So it should be
That's
a really good program. Our social time starts at 6:30 and then the meeting starts at 7. So you're all invited and I hope you guys can make it out. So for now, we're going to get the program started. I want to introduce my good friend, Alberto Willis. He wears many hats, but some of his greatest work is his political activism, his books and his blogs, and his Politics Done Right radio and web show on KPFT 90.1. He's an art progressive, and his favorite phrase is Political involvement should be a requirement for citizenship. He works tirelessly every day to not only educate his listeners about our system that simply moves money and capital around without producing anything tangible for our society, but to explore ways to make our world more fair for everyone. Join me in welcoming my good friend, Edward Willis.
First of all, I want to say that Logan and Isabella, you guys made me of all these people here, you guys made me the happiest because the young people are the ones that we are waiting for. So thank you for being here. Secondly, before we get into the judges, I wanted, I do politics, so I want to get a little bit political here. I am honored to be around these 3 judges. I think there's a 4th one in here too as well. Another judge in here. And these are brave warriors that have taken quite a hit. And I am so happy that they have given us the privilege to talk to us, because sometimes you sit back and listen to what our governor and all the other representatives here are doing against these judges. And we all know that these are people who live among us. These are people who've been through the things like us. These are not guys sitting on some pedestal or anything like that. So it is great to have them here, but I have an admonition for all of us, and that is, they have to be very civil. They cannot come out and say the things that we know they would want to say. They can't come out and defend themselves most of the times. We have to be the ones out there defending them. And I can tell you one thing on the radio, I'll say things that would make them cringe as far as in their defense. But it's something that we are all gonna have to do, in my humble opinion. I'd like to introduce El Señor Judge Raul Rodriguez. Thank you for being here. I lost my position as usual in the thing here. We also want to welcome Judge Ms. Guice. How you doing? Guice, and of course, Judge Manpreet Monica Singh. Thank you very much for being here. First of all, I'd like each of you to introduce yourself formally and tell us a little bit about your particular court and what you do.
I guess I had a mic, so I guess I'll start. Good evening. It's great to be here. My name is Raul Rodriguez. I am the judge of Harris County Criminal Court at Law number 13. Hope this is working.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
I am, of course, a criminal judge. I mostly handle Class A, Class B misdemeanors. So the court that I preside over is a misdemeanor court. So I handle most of the low-level types of offenses that people are charged with. So I don't handle the serious felonies like murders or things like that. It's mostly all misdemeanors, Class A and Class B. I've been a judge now, this is my 7th year, got elected in 2018, ran for re-election in 2022, was re-elected. Of course, I'm running again in 2026. Before I became a judge, I was a practicing criminal defense lawyer. I was a criminal defense lawyer for 26 years before I got into this position. So I'm very happy to be here to share some of the ideas that we have and experiences and whatever questions you might have.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Judge Manpreet Monica Singh, and because of you, I was voted in as the first Sikh elected judge in the nation. So thank you so much for your vote. My entire community and me as a Houstonian is very proud to represent this bench. I also wanted to give a huge thank you to Humble Area Democrats, Indivisible, and I will be a good mom and tell my kids why can't they be like Logan and Isabel and start a club in college, because I thought I taught them something better. But thank you guys so much. Your energy is definitely palpable and contagious, so keep up the good work. I am in Harris County Civil Court at Law number 4. It's a county court. Judge Audrey Lawton Evans is in County Court number 1. And we collectively hear all these cases that are under $325,000 in amounts of disputes. So if you are usually in any position where you're suing somebody or getting sued in a smaller amount in capacity, that's usually in our court, which is like credit card debts, evictions, car accidents, your everyday life stuff, but it's not life and liberty in that manner, but it's more a money dispute. But it obviously has a huge effect on our society. And so that's what we do. Before I got on the bench, I practiced in the same exact arena for 20 plus years in litigation. And so this is definitely my passion. It was my passion to try cases, and it's my passion to be on this side of the bench. So I'm looking forward to serving you for another 4 after I win again in 2026.
Good evening, my name is Ashley Mays Guice, Judge Ashley Mays Guice. I'm the presiding judge of Harris County Criminal Court at Law number 12. It is a similar court as to what Judge Rodriguez presides over. We hear the same type of cases, Class A, Class B misdemeanors. A lot of people don't know we also hear appeals on Class C cases like traffic tickets and the like. So again, as Judge Rodriguez stated, we don't handle the heavy sexual abuse or sexual assault, murder type cases. However, you will see the DWIs, assault family members, and things of that nature in our court. I was appointed to this bench back in July after the Honorable Judge Genesis Draper accepted a position as the Chief Public Defender here in Harris County. Woo woo! Deserves her props. And it was an honor to be appointed after running during the last cycle. I was not successful, in large part to what I believe, was a lot of the misinformation and disinformation that was out there. But because being a judge in this county is a passion of mine and helping people is a passion of mine, I got my hat back in the ring and we moved forward. Now, prior to this appointment, I've been a practicing criminal lawyer for over 14 years. I've worked as a private defense attorney. I've worked as a prosecutor. I've worked as a public defender. I was previously appointed as a judge for a 1-year term in criminal court number 3. And I worked as general counsel to 20 of the county court judges. I worked as their general counsel, their staff attorney. So I have seen just about every perspective that you can in the criminal law world and some of the civil world. And I absolutely appreciate the position that I'm in now because I am able to bring all of those experiences to my judicial perspective. And I'm able to better, and this is no knock against other people who have not done all of the various jobs that I have, but I'm able to understand exactly where they're coming from a lot of times, and I just see different sides of the ball a lot of times when we review cases. And so, again, it is a passion of mine to put all of that together into play as a judge, and I hope to, after 2026, serve you all for 4 more years in Court 12. Thank you.
All right, starting with you, what does safety and justice really mean to you?
Safety and justice means to me, first of all, equality, making sure that we are treating all people, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they may or may not have as far as money goes in their pocket, making sure that they have equal access to the courts and equal application of the law. Because at the end of the day, if one person is in a courtroom where the law is not being applied, I cannot say that we as members of society are safe. So public safety means to me following the law, of course, balancing risks, which is what judges have to do every day, because unfortunately we do not have a crystal ball. We cannot predict what people will do when they step outside of our courtrooms, but it is taking all of the information that we have at a given time and making educated decisions about what we should do. Number 1, to best address the issues in the case before us. And number 2, keep at the forefront of our minds how our decision impacts our neighbors. Because at the end of the day, not only are we judges, but as for me, I live in Humble. My kids go to school in Kingwood. I am your neighbor. I am a citizen of this county just like you are. And so these are all the things that we have to take into account when evaluating what is public safety on a daily basis.
Same question, Leslie.
So safety and justice for us is a little bit different in the civil realm. And to me, it sounds like when we talk about safety and justice, such an easy pick for us to talk about crime, right? But what we don't realize is what the root problem is for a lot of our communities and society. And so when we see the cases that we see when people are in debt or they're owed money or people are being evicted, homelessness and the cause of these things that can possibly be lead for them to go into crime or not, whatever it is, that root cause, we have a juncture that can kind of fix things if we can before it gets to another level. There's another step of intervention. And to me, there's a stark difference, and not to be so divisive so early on in the question with question number one, but practicing in these courtrooms for as long as we did have a Republican-led courtroom for such a long time. There is a huge difference in what we as Democrats bring to the table when we're hearing these cases and the programs that we introduce people to from the members of the community. And it doesn't mean that we're favoring one side or the other. It just means that those resources are actually being exposed to the general community. And what can happen if you get resources? You are educated enough to maybe change the way that you live and work. And similarly, when somebody comes into our courtrooms, we have that opportunity to give financial education, or what it means to have a debt, what it means to have a judgment against you, how it follows you. It's not shocking. It's shocking to us because of the bubble that we live in, but it's not shocking to the rest of the world that they really don't understand how things impact things, right? And so this is a juncture in which we can change things and change their future to where we can put people where they're not going to be in other parts of our system. So that's how I feel.
I don't think it's divisive at all, actually. I think a lot of people don't realize that the genesis of crime often have to do with the greenback. So, I mean, it's
Yeah, my divisive statement is that the Republicans didn't bring in these programs about our people.
Exactly.
That's the divisive part.
And being right isn't divisive. But
Yes. Touche.
Yeah. Anyway, Judge?
Well, the way I look at it is this, the kind of cases that we deal with, Judge Guice and I, like I mentioned, are Class A and Class B misdemeanors. These are individuals that are charged with offenses that are low level. These are offenses that any one of us could actually be charged with. The majority of the cases that I see are driving while intoxicated cases, DWIs. The second most cases that we see are assault cases, assault family member cases where one person may, for whatever reason, they get upset and they hit their spouse. Things happen. So nothing extremely serious, but these are the type of offenses that we see. These are offenses that almost any one of us could have committed one reason or another. A lot of the times, the cases that we see, people that I see, is they use bad judgments. Example, DWIs, you go out to dinner with your spouse, you're celebrating something, you have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, maybe one more than you should, okay? Then you go out, you get pulled over. Officer sees that, hey, they smell odor of alcohol, hey, I think you might be impaired. They do some field sobriety tests, they believe that you're intoxicated. You get arrested. That could happen to almost any one of us, okay? So my position is that we want to treat, of course, first, as far as being, equality, we need to treat every individual with fairness, okay, with respect and dignity. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care your race, your religion, your sexual orientation. None of that matters. You are a human being. That's how I see you. You are a human being that lives in our community that is accused of an offense. And my goal is to try to, of course, 1, make sure that your rights are not violated. 2, public safety means that I want to ensure that I give conditions of bond, which I do, that will ensure public safety. I'll give you an example. Someone that's charged with the offense of driving while intoxicated, I normally will issue conditions of bond that says, okay, temporarily, I don't want you to drink. No drinking of alcohol, okay? Just temporarily, until we can go ahead and resolve this issue, okay? On assault cases, like, for example, assault family member cases, I may issue bond conditions where I say, okay, temporarily, I don't want you to have contact with the victim that's accusing you of. Let's have a little cooling off period, just temporarily, so that maybe that we can find out exactly what happened. So that's my goal. And the other thing that I'm involved in these types of offenses is, of course, people commit crimes. These are offenses that you can go to jail for up to either 6 months on Class B misdemeanors or up to 1 year in the county jail for Class A misdemeanors. However, like I mentioned, most of these offenses are individuals that make bad judgment. My goal usually is not to incarcerate someone and punish them for the crime they committed. That does not solve if someone has an issue, for example, with alcohol. If someone has a drinking problem, they get arrested for DWI because they have a drinking problem, putting them in jail for 6 months is not going to resolve their issue. That is not the solution. The solution is to give them some type of rehabilitation. Some type of rehabilitation that can help solve his issue, his problem. And that's my goal. And that will allow for us to also be safe. Public safety is also tantamount. That allows someone like the community to also be safe if I know that someone is getting help for an issue that they might have. So that's the way that I view, our courts.
Punitive judgment's not necessarily the right thing in a time, and we want to have people who are a part of it, understand how the community works to actually make judgments. Now, why is it that judges remain so silent as they're being attacked?
Well, because we as lawyers and judges, we have an ethical duty. We cannot discuss the things in reference to our cases. So I can't say, for example, on a case that comes before me, this is what we're going to do. We have to remain unbiased. We have to remain impartial. And the only way we can remain impartial and unbiased is by just not knowing anything, about the case until it's presented before me and not speaking about it. So we can't talk. We have an ethical duty under our rules of ethics. We cannot discuss cases. And that's one of the things that, of course, a lot of individuals attack judges. They want us to say, well, talk about this, or what's your position is, and ethically, we cannot. We cannot talk about it. We'll get in trouble if we do. Yes.
But did you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, first of all, I hope you guys have seen the news with the recent judge's house exploding, right?
Yeah.
And there was also a killing in Austin. So these positions that we have, I've now found out is not as glamorous as you would think. Kidding, I knew that. But so it's very hard to not want to comment and not to react, right? Because we have a reactive nature just as human beings. But the issue becomes if we have a judicial canon that we're not allowed to comment on anything, whether it's before us or whether it mimics the same fact pattern of something we may have in the future, then we're not being fair and unbiased when somebody comes before us because we've already have a preconceived notion for our mind. Now, we at the County Courts of Law, and I'm sure like you guys too, have the privilege of dealing with a lot of people with mental health issues, and they protest a lot for us, right? Like each one of us have had a protester who's been in front of our building for a number of days, camped out with a poster board for my colleagues and I. And even so much so that when somebody's like, why are they protesting? Or why can you comment and tell us why? We can't even say, oh, it's because they won or they lost, or that person, we did that fairly, we did that whatever. So that's why when you talked about this in the beginning, and I think that this is so important, that really we should catch fire like they do, right, the youngins. You guys are our mouthpiece. You guys are literally our mouthpiece. When people talk about us and want us to comment and you literally hear nothing on the other end, it has to be told over and over again. It is a judicial violation and it's against ethics for us to comment. They're not going to give a comment to it. It doesn't make it to where we're admitting or denying. It's just we ethically cannot do it. We lose our seat based off of it. And so we really entrust, and a large part in why we're doing these town halls is to say that these are the reasons why you must be frustrated, not knowing. But here are the things that we can tell you. And here are the ways that you can help. And here's how you can spread our message. So these are all very important things, and I'm glad you brought this up.
Just guys, let me modify that a little bit.
Okay.
Why are you soft on crime?
We are not soft on crime. We are smart on crime. We are able to realize that no two cases are the same. And so we must when each case comes before us, we must take the facts as they come and do what we believe is appropriate. Judge Veronica Nelson has a saying that she always says. She says, there are people that we are mad at and there are people that we're scared of. And we cannot treat all of them like they're people that we're scared of. As Judge Rodriguez just said, we see lots of DWIs, and therefore the grace of God go I, because there are lots of people who have made that mistake and gotten behind the wheel when they've had one too many. Does that mean we're scared of them? There's the person who may have made that mistake one time, and then there's the person who repeatedly gets behind the wheel, who intoxicated and picks up case after case after case. We can't treat the two of them the same. Does that mean we're being soft if we the first person that I mentioned, if we look for rehab or something for them to address an issue that they may have with drinking? No. Does it mean we're being smart on crime? Yes. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to see you again. And I tell some people in jest when they come before me, I have the pleasure of having a job where I will tell you with a smile on my face, I do not want to see you ever again. Maybe out in the community, yes, but in this courtroom, I don't. And so we have to be very, very careful confusing being intentional, strategic in our decisions versus being soft on crime, because those are not the same things. And may I say something in response to your last question?
Absolutely.
We were talking about judicial canons, and I think this is a perfect segue to address. We are getting ready to vote on a number of constitutional amendments.
Yeah.
One of them is Prop 12.
Yeah.
When you read it, it sounds sweet and flowery. Like, oh yes, the governor wants to change the makeup of the judicial commitment to individuals that he's appointed. However, what that would likely do, and I can't tell you which way to vote on it, but what it would likely do is place non-lawyers in charge of making decisions for the judges that come before that commission. And so whereas a lawyer will understand the ethics that we are to be bound to follow, a person who has been appointed by the governor may have an allegiance to the individual who put them on that commission. They have no ties to the law, no understanding of the ethics that we're bound by. And that, of course, is very scary for judges, because as we try our best to follow the rules, as we try our best to daily make decisions that demonstrate to you all that the rhetoric out there is untrue, we are now staring down a constitutional amendment that stands to put governor appointees in charge of our livelihoods if we do something that someone is not happy about. And so I just wanted to kind of lead that into
Which prop is that?
Proposition 12.
It's crony
So,
appointment.
again, cannot tell you how to vote on that, but read between the lines and make sure that you make a very educated decision on what you do with that.
It's not only about livelihoods, but it's
We cannot tell you how to vote.
No, I can just tell you, read
I
up.
can. Oh, no.
Look, I just
Simple as that.
tell you how to vote.
We can't tell you how to vote, but vote no.
You got it. That's our job.
But here's the thing, let's talk a little bit about bonds. I know that doesn't necessarily concern you much, but it concerns both of you as far as bonding. One would have you believe that you have more control on bonding than you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit? Well, you said,
Before we get into that,
go
can I
ahead.
tell the origin story of this?
Please do.
As to what happened, and I think it's really important for everyone to understand, because, you know, if we understand the root of the issue, kind of like what I was saying about civil, right? We kind of get to why this matters so much. So in our courtrooms, in our civil courtrooms, juries give verdicts. And as Harris County has changed, so have our verdicts, right? And so when big companies get hit with verdicts that they don't like or appreciate, they no longer want those judges that are on the bench. And so one of the things that was created as a result of this was the business courts that we not heard anything about because they're not seeing as many cases as they wanted to see. Those are governor appointed judges in those positions. So they decided to hit it a different way. What is true, tried and true for election after election, is to come after fear. that you have to talk about how crime is very high in our city, how everything is rampant. We're seeing that with our president right now. I reluctantly call him that, by sending off troops and National Guard members to these cities by making it look like there's created chaos. And so what happens as a result of something like that, when they fund millions of dollars to invoke fear in you, everybody goes to the ballot box and they say, well, we just want the opposite of what's happening. And so that's where it comes from. As you saw in the press briefing from Governor Abbott just last week, crime is absolutely down in Harris County. Everything that we have is absolutely down, and I'm so grateful for that clip. This is the origin story. It is because companies don't want to pay and want to be accountable for whenever juries hold them accountable, because juries are members of our community, and they are saying you are doing something and this is how much you owe. They don't want that, and so this is how they're coming for us. Origin story for your bail issue. So
Okay,
that's not a real issue.
let me just say that, in effect, you're saying they're doing,
Oh, yeah.
because they're scared of, people are scared of quote-unquote criminals.
Right.
They're using criminal judges to get at the civil court
Correct.
judges in
And they-
order to have some sort of a control over
So
the
this stuff-
entire legal system.
Absolutely, and so the Stop Murders PAC was thus created, and that's why you saw people with their misinformation about people, their family members, and I am not making light of the fact that they've had murders in their family. I've also had murders in my family, and it's awful. Nobody's talking about that, but this PAC was created and funded by big corporations, builders and construction people. And if you look at the statistics of who lost in the 2024 election, the majority were civil court judges. It works. So what we have to do now is make sure we are educated by both of my colleagues here today regarding the bond issue and all that. So you have the talking points, which you've also handed out, but you understand that this is a money issue. It really, we're doing great. You guys are doing great. You're good enough, you're smart enough.
Where did I hear that before? Yeah, so on bonds, just to kind of expand on that, why is it that in as much as they're given a whole lot of work, judges' problems with these bond issues, that they don't bring up the stories of judges on the other side whose folks have committed severe issues? Let's talk of Dan Patrick's son, etc.
Exactly.
Please go ahead.
And unfortunately, I cannot remember the defendant's name, but this was a case that no one seems to talk about, where our lieutenant governor's son, when he was on the bench, Ryan Patrick, released an individual on bond, on a low bond. And may I remind you that bonds on murder cases right now are absolutely higher than they have ever been before. When I was a prosecutor in the DA's office around, let's say I left in 2019, but at that time, we had a schedule, and off the bat, the bond for a murder is $50,000. No thought put into it. It was on a piece of paper that was hanging up in the intake office. And now you're seeing bonds that are $1 million, $2 million. And so don't believe the hype. These judges are setting high bonds. But what they won't tell you is about individuals like the defendant who Judge Ryan Patrick released on a low bond, who then went out to commit, I believe, was it a capital murder?
Yes, it was.
He went out to commit a capital murder. But now we act like this is a new invention, and that now that we have all of these Democratic judges, now these repeat offenders are getting out on these low bonds because these soft on crime judges don't care to set appropriate bonds, and these people are just going out and just, running amok in our communities, and they completely forget to mention the fact that these things have been happening. Democratic judges did not invent crime, I'm sorry to tell you. It has been around since the courts were majority Republican-led, and this is not a new invention. And so, yes, this has been happening for some time. And also, to piggyback off of giving the broader context of the state of affairs we find ourselves in, is if this was really about crime, or Democratic judge's position on crime. Why is it in 2024 that the Republican Party did not run an opponent in, I believe it was 6 district court races, 6 criminal district court races. So those are district courts, those are the ones that see the murders, the capital murders, the aggravated sexual assaults. They didn't even bother to put somebody up in those races, but they expect you to believe that their position is we're soft on crime and that crime is the issue.
They've been running on it for 30 years.
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
so
if they
when
can't
you're
talk
talking-
about that, what do they got to talk about?
Exactly. So when you're talking to other people and their response to you is, well, I've heard that these judges are just running them up and causing all this, confusion, chaos, and crime in our society. Remind them, if that was really the case, why didn't they put an opponent up in those races? So.
Now, Judge Rodriguez, isn't it true as well that when it comes to bonding issues that the DA, within 10 days, they should be able to really put a stop to it if they really wanted to?
Put a stop to bonds?
Not put a stop to it, but to come to you,
Oh, okay.
a hearing.
Yeah, they can have a hearing now. Most of that is in a felony court or district court.
Okay.
So we don't have that requirement in misdemeanor court.
Okay.
In misdemeanor court, we don't have that requirement. The DA must show up and request a bond. That's mostly for felonies. But in terms of the bond issues for us,
Talk about it for felonies and felons.
okay, for felonies, yes, that is true. They're required to come before a judge in order to make a request for a bond. And if they do not, then the judge by law has no choice but to either give a low bond, set a low bond, or release that person. So that's happened on a couple of occasions. And then they blame the judge for doing that, but the culprit
The district.
happens to be the district attorney who failed to come before the judge and make a request. So we as judges, we have to follow the law. Whatever the law says, we must follow it. That's our job. And what these judges have been doing is they've been following the law exactly like it's written, and they are doing their job, but yet they get, ostracized for doing so. And of course, the public doesn't know that. They don't know these things.
As Judge Singh pointed out, one of the reasons is, again, they're using you as the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Come at you. Again, to come at the civil
Because you can't
side.
respond.
Now, one of the things that we ought to ask is, who is there to point that out? Well, I asked you about the DA, and you pointed out, well, you guys don't, that is for the felony case. However, that paints all of you, even though it's for felony cases, most people don't know that.
So I just wanted to say this because I really feel like I have a better understanding of this because I had no understanding of this, right? Like I literally have only done civil. So I've had my colleagues explain stuff to me. And I have to dumb it down this much for me. I'm not trying to call you guys dumb. I'm like, this is how I had to understand it. DA equals the state of Texas, the people who are bringing the charge against them. Okay, and then I also dismissed, it's the same for civil too. The only person that can dismiss a case is the person who brings the case, which is the state of Texas, or if it's agreed by both the parties, right? And that's the same as civil, and it literally, those things make sense to me in a civil context, but I didn't realize how it works in the criminal context. Meaning, judges don't dismiss cases, judges rubber stamp cases when they say, when the state of Texas says, I no longer want to pursue this case, I'm dismissing it, judge says, okay, fine, I can't make you charge somebody. I'm no longer a lawyer, you're the lawyer for the state of Texas, and you're saying you don't want it, I have to accept whatever you want, even though I think this person's awful, what are you doing? That helped me a lot, so I figured it out. You guys talk like we know this stuff, we don't have a clue.
Actually, you do know this stuff, but here's
I mean, you do.
No, I don't. Here's the thing. I have a few more questions here, but what I think based on the time is a bit more effective is for me to do what I do on all of my interviews, and that is to say, why don't you tell me, each of you, something that I should have asked you based on what you're doing, and you tell me what our audience need to know, and then we'll go to the Q&A.
I brought paper because I'm a nerd.
We're not nerds.
Hold it up and you can do that whole nine.
It's fine. So again, I want to put this all in proper context. They say we're soft on crime. They say we don't do enough. In 2025, now I'm reading facts that came directly from the DA's office dashboard. In 2025, to date, well, as of it was last updated on October 1st, there were 87,884 dispositions and cases, okay? So about 87,000 dispositions of cases. Of that 87,000, 64.21 were dismissals. Almost 56,000 of those 87,000 cases were dismissals. And so the portrait that they want to paint is we are soft on crime. However, many of us sitting on these courts, seeing these cases be dismissed on a daily basis, understand that the state has a burden to prove, a burden that they must be held to, and sometimes they're just not cutting it. And so that's something to put all of this into perspective. In my court alone, Court 12, of the cases that have been filed to date, over 70% have been disposed as dismissals, and only 20% of them were disposed as convictions. So this, and I'm not saying this to in any way malign our district attorney, however, you must realize that the quality of cases that come before us, they're not always the best. And again, it's the state who has to make the decision to dismiss these cases. And so to give the impression that we are down at the courthouse not doing our jobs or releasing these people out into the free world to harm others, that's not the case. A lot of these cases that are filed end up in a dismissal. So that's one thing that I wanted to make sure people knew about before I left.
Thank you.
So I also wanted to take the time to introduce Judge Jermaine Thomas. He's here as well. He's civil county court at law, and this is what I want everybody to understand, the difference of what diversity brings to the bench with the 5 of us on the county civil court side and what matters. And really one of the most surprising things for me when I took the bench, really honestly, when you hear people and you come from different backgrounds, and I've got to say, it was not like that before, right? The backgrounds that we had were so very same and similar before with the Republican Party. All of our dockets started at 8 in the morning because they didn't have to take their kids to school. All of them ended as late as they wanted because mom, wife is at home cooking. Well, I'm the wife and I'm the one who's taking the kids to school. So we have random diversity, whether it's gender, race, religion, all that. And what I appreciated when I first started was being a first generation immigrant and how that translates to no matter what type of immigrant you are, body language, what they really mean, what it looks like, the distrust of government and not buying into the other person. All that stuff really, really is something that we bring that I know the other party doesn't do. And I am confident that the 5 of us bring that same diversity because we've all experienced some form of what we're ruling on in that courtroom. And so I think it's important that we push that message out. We're in the community not because we're trying to win your vote, we're in the community because that's where we started and that's where we're gonna end. And when you bring that perspective to the bench, you rule completely different than how anybody else would rule. I think that that's really important. And then piggybacking off of your statistics as well, I think what's also important is when people talk about the backlog in our system, there is not a backlog in our system. But for, I'll tell you from the civil district side and the civil county court side, for example, with Hurricane Harvey, there was a huge issue because we had a courtroom share and all the rest. And life and liberty always will take precedent over money. And so when you have an old case that's a civil case, it's because it was way more important for us to take care of all those murder cases that were happening rather than whether somebody needed to make money off of their lawsuit or not, right? And so those took precedent. Then you have COVID. All these things garnered it to where it was pushed back. However, we have caught up in such a way and we are trying cases in such a manner that I know that there's no other, I know for a fact, having practiced in county courts, I was just telling Judge Rodriguez this before, when our floor was entirely Republican, I couldn't get a trial date for 7 years. We have not only fixed that backlog and completely obliterated, now you try a case and you're done within a year, all 5 of us do that. So you are not waiting on a trial date, you are not waiting for justice to be served, you are not for empathy to be heard, all that is happening.
So all 20, so that includes criminal and county courts at law, all of us have clearance rates above 100%, which means we are disposing of more cases than we bring in a month. Nice job.
That's good.
Now, one thing I wonder, something that this lady said about the Republicans that's been happening for 30 years.
Yep.
Yes, you're correct. I started practicing law in 1992. In 1992, when I started practicing, most of the benches were Republican.
Yep.
1994 elections, the Republicans swept the entire benches of Harris County. Every single bench was Republican from 1994 all the way up to around 2008. In 2008, when Obama got elected, we started seeing a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit of change. We had some Democrats that did win their benches, but most of the time they were Republicans. Well, during all that time, they're the ones that were ruling on these cases, and they're the ones that were doing low bonds, things like that. The same issues that they're talking about now, things that they're complaining about these judges, they were having the very same issues back then. But nobody was complaining because they had this ability to be able to get elected, kind of like what's kind of happening now, regardless of what they do. So they could be the baddest person, the baddest judge, it didn't matter, they still got reelected. And so this was happening for many years. And not until about 2008, the tide started turning. For the benches that we're serving, the tide turned in 2018. In 2018, we were able to sweep all 20 of the county court benches. That's 16 county criminal courts and 4 county civil courts. Prior to 2018, all of those benches were Republican, every single one of them. Wow. And in 2018, we flipped it. And one of the things that we did in our position in county court, because I was one of those individuals that ran in 2018 and won, we sued the judges. In 2017, we sued the county criminal court at law judges for their procedures on bail. They were not releasing individuals on bail, people that got charged with small, minor misdemeanor cases, like shoplifting. Someone goes and takes something, a lot of time out of need, gets arrested for shoplifting, small, nothing, egregious about it, it happened, but yet their bonds were like $5,000 and they couldn't get out and they were not being released on personal bonds. And so we had a bunch of individuals, especially people that are poor, that could not get out of jail because they could not afford the bonds that they were given. And so we sued them. In 2017, we filed a lawsuit in federal court saying that these judges were violating these individual equal protection rights. They were not being treated equally. There was a difference between those individuals and someone that they had money, okay? So we sued them, and guess what? We won. We won that lawsuit, and that led to bail reform in the misdemeanor section. So now we have a system where we're going to release somebody that's charged with a very low level offense on a bond because it's a small offense. And we're talking about people that are just regular folks that have jobs, okay? These individuals that got arrested and couldn't get a bail bond because they had a high bill, guess what they did? They pled guilty because they received a 3-day jail sentence. So they would say, okay,
Already
give
said their
me
time.
3 days in jail, I'm out of here. So they pled guilty, now they have a conviction.
Can I add a
Yes.
statistic to that?
Oh, yes, please.
The nerd. In 2015, out of the 60,000 misdemeanor cases filed and that were eventually disposed, the arrestee was sentenced to a term of jail in 62% of those cases. By contrast, in 2022, after these judges won their lawsuit, only 25% of the cases filed, about a comparable number to that 60,000, resulted in a jail sentence.
I wonder why.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna start with the questions.
Later?
Yeah, and actually, is there anything else you want to say before we go to the questions? Okay, we can take the questions, so go ahead, ma'am.
I just read an article about this new ordinance that the mayor has passed for homeless people and how many tickets they've already written and how much money it amounts to. What is gonna happen to these people? They're gonna get incarcerated because they can't pay the fines and they're not employed. I mean, it's just gonna jam up the whole
And the prisons
court,
are
the prison
private.
system.
Yes,
They're
they're
already
sending
in
them out
violation
of
of every
state.
law there is, right?
All the money.
When you mentioned
just
about
crazy.
the conviction, I was about to say that was above the pay grade for today's session.
I mean, what's gonna
But it
happen
is the
to
truth.
these people? They're gonna go to jail, right?
Yes.
They are gonna go to jail.
And we're already in violation of most of the state laws regarding our jail system in Harris County, right? So, I mean,
Exactly.
that's not a solution.
It's not, and just this last week, I had one particular case, and well, let me not talk about the specific case, but it's creating an issue for the attorneys who a lot of times if people are homeless and are suffering from mental health
Illness,
issues,
sure.
they can't keep up with them. If they have some sort of, the state has made an offer for you to go and get mental health treatment in exchange for a dismissal on your case, they can't do it because they keep getting picked up. So it's just gonna exacerbate that issue.
It's a train wreck. Go, it's left the station now, okay? You're gonna see it.
Cindy,
It's gonna be in your courts, right? Will you guys see it in your?
Some of them might get municipal tickets, but
But still, these incarceration, they don't pay.
if you
Yeah.
pick them up and they have, marijuana or something, then they end up in ours.
okay, Cindy.
Okay, so we had Judge Cornelio and Judge Morris come and talk to our indivisible group.
Had one more.
And where was the other one? My brain isn't working. Anyway, we had 3 judges come in. They're all criminal court judges, district
Yeah,
court.
they're felony court judges.
So they were explaining to us how many people have been sent out of Texas,
Yeah, they're in Louisiana. They're in-
Louisiana, and somewhere else, I don't remember, Alabama,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mississippi. Yes.
So my question to them, and I don't know that I ever got an answer, because maybe they don't know, or they couldn't say, or whatever, but I'll throw it out again. I'm assuming the state has to pay for, the transportation of these prisoners,
And their care while they're there.
and their care at some level,
Not the
right? But
state.
now you've removed
Taxpayers pay
them
for it.
from any family members or people who have their support system, they have one. So are we gonna do this with these homeless people? Are we gonna ship them out of state too? That's insane.
So I would encourage you guys to have a guest speaker for this. Because honestly, I've been to a conference on this, and it is fascinating. I mean, truly is, and it just from a judicial perspective, it doesn't really, we get
You don't see it in your
we don't
report.
see it.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating, that it is so layered, and I don't think that our colleagues were not trying to answer it. It just is not our lane.
It's not your thing.
It's not our lane, but it is very important that we educate ourselves
Sure.
even on that, because that's a whole nother very
I
popular
don't
industry.
think the general
Conversation.
public
It's all
knows this is
privatized.
going on. People do not know this.
Yeah, they don't understand what's
Right.
happening. 'cause
Right.
we didn't
And
even
somehow
know
we're
that.
paying for that as taxpayers.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we're paying more.
Follow the money, as they say, but it doesn't make sense.
Yes, but there's nobody following the money in Texas.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
there
they
really
are.
isn't, because it's
It's going
controlled
in
by
their
the
pocket.
Republicans, so you don't see any reporting on
No.
money in
You mean you're not
Texas.
reading my blogs?
Yes, we do read your blog.
Right? Always.
Anyway, who else has a question?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the situation that you described before, where you're taking someone with a small crime or accusation, and they're presented with a we'll settle for this, and then they have a record. It's disastrous.
Mhm.
But why, is there one reason why they're doing that is the district attorney can go, well, my conviction rate is approaching 100%, and that makes them seem to be
They don't
strong
have the
on
money to
crime.
pay bond. They can't pay the bond.
Well, of course, but why do the DAs do that?
I can't, of course, speculate as to why. As a former prosecutor, I can tell you that was never the edict, or that was never something that we encouraged prosecutors to do. We did encourage them to seek justice and do what was right. But on a case-by-case basis, there are some prosecutors who make offers that they believe are appropriate, and sometimes it does involve jail time. The other thing, from a judicial perspective that I see, is sometimes the state will offer probation and the person will be like, I don't want to be on probation. It's going to be too much hard work. I don't have transportation. I don't have this. I don't have that. In my courtroom, in many of the courtrooms, county court, criminal court at law, we as judges will tell them up front, we will work with you. If it's money that's the issue, we don't want this on your record as much as you probably don't want this on your record. We'll work with you. But there are some people who just flat out refuse and say, no, I'd much rather just take this conviction. So it's not always the prosecutor that's behind the conviction. Sometimes that person, and remember, some of these people have been going in and out of the system for years, and so they have preconceived notions about what's going on. We understand misdemeanor bail reform, but a person who gets picked up, that's not on the forefront of their mind. They just know the last time that I got picked up for this, I took a time served and I went about my way. And so, unfortunately, as much as we're trying, we cannot control a person's individual decisions. But it's a number of reasons. But what I can say is that the criminal courts at law have developed Bayou Community Court, and the acronym Bayou means bringing assistance to you through outreach and understanding. And so what we have done is implemented a Fresh Start program, which then allows us to partner with the Harris County Public Defender's Office to find individuals who are entitled to petitions of non-disclosure to get their records sealed, because we understand that that is a way to attack and reduce criminal recidivism, is to help these people seal their records so that they're able to live somewhere that's suitable, find a job, and receive the assistance that they need, possibly from the government, to live from day to day. And so we understand that we have to look beyond the conviction, because there are some cases where a conviction could still be sealed. And we don't just stop at the point of the gavel banging and saying, oh, you're convicted, or oh, you were put on probation. We want to make sure that people have an avenue to clear their records where the law entitles them to do so that they can make better decisions and not come back to the courtroom. And to show you that it's working, the last Fresh Start that we had in August, there were 300 spots available for individuals to sign up to get their records sealed. Those 300 spots were filled in 90 seconds. 90 seconds. So I can't tell you why it's happening, but I can tell you we're trying to do everything that we can in our power to help those who have made those decisions and to help them clear up their records.
Can I have a follow-up? Just a quick one here. You've spoken about an individual, but there are people who, they are the money earners for that family. They have an outrageous pressure on them to settle and get out. Does anybody take that into consideration?
Yes.
I'll give you a little bit of history, because I've been around for a while. I started practicing when Johnny Holmes was the DA. Anyone remembers Johnny Holmes? Okay. And their position back then, and this is something that seemed that they were bragging about, they would say, oh, we have a 95% conviction rate.
Yep.
I mean, that was their deal. Our conviction rate is really, really high. Well, one of the reasons is because you get these individuals that are charged with a low-level offense, and they need to get out of jail, so they give them a 3-day sentence. That's a conviction that goes in their numbers. The number one, I think the number one thing that the district attorney and assistant district attorney's goal is that they need to seek justice. It's in the law. The law says that they're responsible to make sure that justice is served. That's what their responsibility is as a district attorney, as an assistant district attorney. So I think now you've seen all these dismissals that Judge Guice was talking about. I believe that they're looking at and saying, no, that's not good. We're not gonna follow through. We're not having justice not being served by having this person get convicted of this crime. So we're gonna dismiss it. Okay? So it's turning. And I think part of the reason is because of who is leading the office. After Johnny Holmes was Chuck Rosenthal. He's basically the same thing because he was Johnny Holmes' assistant. You know, so we have this history where a lot of the district attorneys back then, they were hardcore, very hardcore. And they were just concerned with their conviction. Because I remember, I was practicing during that time. And now things have changed. So the goal of the district attorney's office is to seek justice. And I think that give props to our DA has been doing a very, very good job at that.
And that's also where bail reform comes in, because in the past, before bail reform, you know, your bond got set. Many defense attorneys didn't even try fighting with those judges about reducing the bond or even asking for a PR bond. That was sometimes unheard of. But now more than ever, if an attorney is appointed to someone who's in custody and they're saying, look, I got a job, or my kids, I don't have care for my kids, they're bringing those concerns to us, and we are able to go through by law what we're supposed to factor in assessing a bond. And we can consider whether we'll give them a PR bond, but the law absolutely says that we must factor in their ability to pay. So even if we don't set a PR bond, which would allow them to be released on no money, even if we set a secured bond, we have to factor in what they're able to pay so that they can get out and work and do what they need to do, and so that they don't feel that pressure to plead or make a rash decision. And they know that they have the option to come to the judge and get a bond set that will allow them to continue their livelihood while their case is pending.
I also think people don't know what they don't know, right? So like for us, whenever we see people coming to an agreement on a credit card case or in an eviction, great, right? I'm glad you guys are agreeing to something. But then they file what we call an agreed judgment. Well, that judgment follows them everywhere until they pay it off. And I think the fact that we sit down and we're like, hey, you understand what this means. It's going to stay on your record. You're not going to be able to buy a house, a car, or do anything when you have a judgment on your record. I think a lot of people just don't see themselves in that position, right? And so they don't understand that these are the consequences of a conviction or of a judgment or whatever else. So I think it's very important that we have people who give them the time of day to hear them. Because we also give bad news to people, right? But it's just how you make them feel. And as Judge Thomas always says, if you're gonna fall, we just wanna give you a soft landing, right? Like that's our job. If we all know what the law is, black and white, we just wanna make sure that we can help you the best we can. Judge Evans, do you?
Oh, well, since you're taking over as moderator. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to take a couple of things, right? One, we really appreciate that we're doing this. We are actually going to be taking this on the road. If you have a group, if you have anybody that needs to or wants to hear this message, we are out here and dedicated to doing this all the way until November 2026, right? I just want to, I'm a big person on takeaways, like real quick takeaways, and I just wanted to make sure I heard this correctly. Before all of these wonderful judges came onto the bench, and before bail reform, what was the process? Yeah, then you mentioned something about a schedule. Okay, and that's on a piece of paper. And it's already set out for you, right?
That's right. So the district attorney runs a 24/7 command station called DA intake. That's where officers call in order to run down the allegations and see if the prosecutor will accept charges. So let's say charges are accepted. Back in the day before reform, there was literally a sign on the wall that said, and forgive me if I don't remember the numbers, but I believe for every prior misdemeanor conviction that a person had, you would put $500 towards their bond. For every prior felony conviction that they had, it would be $1,000. So you would literally just go through a person's criminal history and say, okay, they've been convicted of criminal trespass 3 times, that's $1,500. And then they had a felony PCS case, so that's another $1,000. So the bond that I'm setting is $2,500. There was no thought given as to the fact that this person was homeless, or that maybe this person took a time served because they just needed to get out. It was just a straight schedule that we used, and that was the basis of the lawsuit. It's because the law requires an individualized review of a person's financial, their financial ability, their the risk to community safety, and so on and so forth. And no attention was paid to that. It was just read through this, do the math. It was very formulaic, and this is the number that we assessed for your bond.
Right. So
No empathy.
before a cheat sheet, and now you actually think.
Okay, any more questions?
Uh-oh.
All right, tell you what. Oh, yeah, John.
So I just want to follow up on one of the questions here and what you were talking about with the sealing of the records. So those are fantastic programs because people get their lives back. They can get a job, they can go get a loan for a car, whatever. One other program, since you all came on the bench, do you think is similar, not in function, but in hopefulness to the folks?
Yeah, so in our courthouse, what we do is, and this also depends on what we have in terms of the ability to connect the resources. But for example, these legal aid or legal services that are given, what we do is, COVID was actually the best, most efficient time, to be quite honest, when we were getting federal relief, which we will never have federal relief with this president. But what we would do is these legal aid and legal help line places basically would come and get a list of all the people who are going to be evicted in the next few weeks. And they would call them up and talk to them and see what they can work out. Again, even if they have to be evicted, let's do it with dignity. Don't have their stuff out in front. There's options, right? And so that was a very feng shui type of relationship. And our courts were open to say, here's the list. Call the people, see if you can help them. So similarly with Judge Thomas, and I can either let you speak about it too, or I can tell what you did about having them outside and talking to the defendants before.
Okay, well, when we did our eviction or heard our eviction appeals, we would have Lone Star Legal or Harris Neighborhood Center out, and they would provide legal representation to those tenants who needed assistance. And what we've learned from that process is it shortened our docket because the plaintiff's attorney just didn't run roughshod over the tenant because the tenant didn't know the law. And so in some instances, it put them on better footing as they moved on. Maybe they worked out an agreement where the tenant agrees to move out and they won't get a judgment for eviction on their record, and they're able to move to their next home. And so we found it very helpful, and I commend the judges for actually adopting that program because it provided a lot of people with relief. The resources have dried up somewhat, but the resources are still out there.
Can you picture Republican judges doing
No. And so it's not even just these programs of these resources drying up is one thing, right? But look at this, all 5 of us do this where when somebody comes into our courtroom, we force them to talk to one another and see if they can work something out. That forced discussion resolves, I'd say 50% of what we hear an hour, because they're forced to talk. And sometimes, it's not just because somebody's suing you doesn't mean that they don't want to be there. Sometimes the defendant doesn't trust them or whatever, they can't get in the same room as them. So once they're in the same room, these discussions take place that are so helpful and they resolve things. And so, yes, I can affirmatively say, I've never been so forced to talk to people, but it's really helpful because the majority of people work things out. We're fostering an environment of people loving their neighbors. And that's not something that we've seen before.
that? Just talking about living in the
I know, that was such a ridiculous.
And that's a wrap.
Any other questions at all? Okay, well, if no more questions, we give one more round. A closing statement as far as what you what would you like the audience to know about why they need to be voting in judges like all of you? And I tell you what you just said really touched me, because it actually shows that the person doing the judging, that they understand how people live their real lives, you know what I mean? And I think that is so important. But anyway, close it, please.
Just very briefly, thank you all for being here. And as Judge Singh said before, we rely on you all to be our voice in a lot of situations because we are so limited in what we can say and do. And so I just want to offer, if there's any HOA meeting, anything that, anywhere that you would like us to be, I live on this side of town, please feel free to reach out to me. I will go wherever I can to spread the limited word that I can. But we are relying on you all to kind of run the race alongside us and do the portions that we can. And I know you all have been doing this for a long time, and I just thank you. That's really the only closing statement I have.
Well, as we approach Thanksgiving and you approach your dinner tables, it's very important in my mind that you understand the talking points so everyone can have an educated discussion. Obviously, there's people on your dinner table that are not gonna ever move their way. But one thing I've noticed, again, I really do love, yes, these are the poster, we've handed every single one. John is graciously
And we
giving them
can
to you
give them
guys.
to your group, so you
Yeah.
can block walk with.
We can give it to you in whatever way you want.
Yeah.
If you want your logo on it, we can do it. Whatever it is, we are here to empower you. And guess what? We run our courts the same way.
Hey,
We want to empower you.
We'll get more.
We,
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
we can
give it
block
to you.
walk with these
We'll
when
get
we
them
get closer
by
to
your
the
next
election,
meeting.
that'd be great, okay?
Yeah, we
We need
need
to
a
get
stack
our
of
email
these.
addresses, Egbert, are you gonna put their email addresses?
this is
up?
easy.
I'm not only that, I'm gonna beg them to come and, she's already saying that she want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we gotta
You can
push
come
that
to one
here
of
as
our
well.
Tuesday night
Yeah.
meetings. Yeah, we've had them in.
Mine's really easy. Mine's Monica@judgesing.com.
But you can actually,
You are so
for John,
conceited.
y'all can send John, John will
great.
give you our email addresses for all of us and
Just sing with an H.
telephone numbers and
Yeah.
we'll get that. And then I'm gonna make sure you get the handouts too.
Yeah, I want a stack of these.
But I really think that that's our key. Honestly, because I was so ignorant on the criminal system, and I want to admit this because I think it's important for us to all understand that it's okay if I was practicing law for as long as I was, and I literally had no idea about the criminal justice system. The things that I learned, it literally, all of a sudden, I'm not arguing when somebody says, well, why really set a high bond? I'm not like, well, we're Democrats. I actually understand what's happening. It's not like that, or it's very, very, knowledge is power. It's very helpful to know what's happening. So that's my takeaway, is that if we can explain these things to you, you'll be better equipped to fight our battles for us. And we just need a million of us little minions fighting this for us, right?
That's right.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be a war. So
Well, I also want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It's my pleasure to come out and talk. One of the things that I want to say is we need your help. We need your help by going out and talking to individuals, talking to your neighbors, and going out and vote. We are doing the job. We are doing the job that we were elected to do. You don't want to go back to the way it was, especially for those that have been practicing for a while like me. I remember those days when I first started practicing. In fact, just to give you an idea, this past election or 2022, we lost 3 individuals on our benches that went Republican. 3 Republicans that are on 3 Democrats lost, 3 Republicans won. There's actually 4 Republicans that are on the county criminal courts of law benches. There's 16 benches. 12 of those are Democrat, 4 are Republican. I've noticed because I have a colleague that's right next door to me, who's a Republican. I've noticed that they seem to be reverting back to the old system that they did when they were all in office. They're as a matter of fact, just to give you an idea, they're wanting to go back to federal court to do away with this federal law that was that we won They're trying to do away with it. They're taking,
They're trying to go back to the 50s, baby.
they want to go back, well, to a certain extent. So they want to repeal the bail bond reform that we won in federal court. And these are the Republican judges that are trying to do it. So they seem to be wanting to revert back to the old ways. Well, we can't have that.
That's right.
We want to continue our job, but we need your help. So we're just asking for, if you could please, just help all your friends and neighbors to go out and vote.
Yep.
And we'll be fine.
Our rally cry is very true this year too, right? Don't go back, vote Democrat.
Well, look, honorable judges, all of you, and all 5 of you here, thank you so kindly for coming out. And to close, let's bring up our president, El Señor John Tyler.
I don't know about you, but that was exciting. This is the second one I've been to. Learned more things tonight. Want to thank everybody in the room for coming out tonight for the program. And I really want to thank all 4 of you for coming out and sharing what you know. Thank you for moderating and giving them the hard questions. And I look forward to all 5 of you talking to Berto on his show. We do have one candidate. I want to give him 30 seconds to come and say hi. He's running for one of those Republican benches
All
that
right.
we just talked about.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Bettis. I am running for Harris County Criminal Court of Law number 2. I just found out on Friday that my primary opponent has withdrawn and is going to seek election in another court. However, the grind does not stop. I am before Judge Guice and I am before Judge Rodriguez. I am a MAC-appointed attorney, which basically means I do 90% appointment work. The trouble with that is I have a stereotype. My clients don't trust me, so I have to work doubly hard for them to trust that I am not a stereotypical court-appointed attorney. And what the judges say today is true. We have to move forward. We cannot revert back to what was happening back in the 90s and the 80s and up to 2008 and continuing on in 2018. I hope to earn your vote. I hope to earn the respect of our voters to move this county forward and maintain our stronghold here in Texas, because it's very important that we not only follow the Constitution and allow victims to be heard, but that the accused are not abused by Republican judges. Thank you all.
And once again, thanks so much for coming out. Follow our newsletters and our Facebook pages for other programs like this. And don't forget, Rep. G. Wu will be at Humble next Monday night. If you guys can come out. Social time's at 6:30 and the meeting starts at 7. Thanks, everyone.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.